Well, I was going to say there's one thing I heard on your show once that really struck me. There's two things. There's one thing I read in Will Durant I want to talk about in a second, and then the other thing is the thing I heard on your show. And one thing you were talking about on one of your episodes, you said that a lot of the things we have now are poor substitutes and fragmented versions of religion. You know, talking about, there's all these new age movements and coaches, and there's, even Tony Robbins is like a weird bastard religion. People go and they sing and dance and jump up and down, and they, they're there for 50 hours and they pay money and they're like, there's a lot of like weird little religions now that are kind of popular. They're not officially religions, but they serve the purpose of what religion used to do. That's one thing that's weird, is we have all these weird little fragmented things to try to fill the holes of the missing religion. And the other thing I read the other day is a Will Durant quote that just hit me in the head like a brick. And it was along the lines of, never in history has a civilization been able to uphold morality without religion. And that was a Will Durant quote. And he's like, we've never, ever been able to do it. When I read that line, I was like, wow, we've never been able to do it. Like, not even once. It's kind of like, has communism ever worked? It's never worked once. And we've never been able to have morality without religion. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, empirically speaking, it's entirely accurate. And there is this terrifying thought, which I think has occurred to most students of history who at least are looking at things objectively. And the thought goes something like this. What if atheism is injected into society by sociopaths who wish to dissolve the church that stands between them and totalitarian power? And like, why does communism hate religion so much? Is it because it doesn't like what it perceives to be irrational or anti-rational? Well, no, of course not. I mean, communism claimed to be scientific, right? We can make all these predictions and so on. And none of the predictions that communism made in its origins have come true. In fact, quite the opposite has occurred, right? So communism said, the rich are going to get richer, the poor are going to get poorer, and the middle class is going to disappear. Well, what happened? Well, the rich got less rich in many ways. The poor got wealthier, and the middle class became the dominant force in Western society. They said, we're going to have, we're going to outproduce the capitalist nations when we get socialist means of production. Quite the opposite occurs, right? You know the old joke in Russia: people wait for bread. In capitalism, bread waits for people. You see this whole bakery full of rows, right? And so, just you could go on, but communism has no problem with anti-rationality, and it has no problem rejecting reason and evidence. So why does it reject Christianity in particular? Well, it rejects Christianity because Christianity has universal ethics. Christianity stands between the base mammalian Nietzschean will to power lust of your average scraped of religion human mammal and the power that they desire over others, right? Because, I mean, if you look at the left, if you look at the socialists, the communists, and the fascists often come from the left. Like Mussolini was a diehard Marxist who just happened to switch nation in where class used to be. But if you look at them, they openly state that they're willing to lie, that they're willing to deceive. Environmentalists do the same thing. They say, well, we have to create scare stories, otherwise people won't listen. So they exaggerate, they lie, you name it, right? I mean, global warming, I mean, they have to triple the effects of CO2 just magically in order to get the results they want, which in business would be cause for an SEC inquiry, I think. But so if you look at deception, well, deception is part of the animal kingdom. If you look at how animals get their resources, they cheat, they lie, they steal all the time. I mean, you can see crabs who have shells to attract mates stealing shells from each other all the time. You got cuckoos dropping their eggs into other birds' nests. You've got a trap spider who hides. That's cheating, man. He's not chasing. That's cheating, right? You got dogs that circle, like the hyenas circle around to get the antelope. It's all strategy and falsehood and deception. I mean, if you look at the tiger's stripes, it's hiding in the tall grass. It's cheating, man. So deception and lying and falsehood in the animal kingdom is common. Now, Christianity says, thou shalt not bear false witness. You're not allowed to lie. Now, a lot of religions say that you have moral obligations, but only to fellow believers in your religion. To outsiders, you have no moral obligations, right? And that's base rank tribalism. Now, Christianity came along, and this is the great revolution of Jesus. Christianity came along and said, no, ethics are universal. The original commandment was thou shalt not kill other Jews, right? And Jesus came along and said, let's just take that last bit out and make it universal. Thou shalt not bear false witness to anyone, whether they believe in your religion or not. And so universalizing ethics was the foundation for the modern world. And if you look at the left, who are anti-Christian almost exclusively, they're perfectly happy and willing to use deception and lies and falsehoods, of course, to gain power, to gain the power that they want. And that is what happens when you take ethics out of humanity. We can't be like animals. We can't, because we're not animals. We're human beings. So the only thing we can ever become when we lose our humanity is inhuman. It's all we can become. We can only become inhuman. We cannot return to the animal state.